Welcome to the Horror Chronicles. Get ready to delve into the mysteries of an abandoned and haunted land. Join us as we uncover the eerie secrets and encounter supernatural phenomena in this chilling tale. Stay tuned for more hair-raising stories on the Horror Chronicles. Subscribe now to keep up with our bone-chilling adventures. Abandoned places have a special taste in the world of horror. How many places have so many stories and experiences hovering around them? Some of them may be real, and may be just a fantasy, but they are undoubtedly inspiring places for the mind and imagination, and rightfully so. And many rural places are full of very terrifying stories. Especially those lands that were left by their owners long ago. So they were inhabited by clans of elves, and refused to leave them. The beginning, the narrator is called Peter, and he says that he was born into an average family, and lives in a rural area. And the lady who gave birth was that he would be very annoying. The days passed, and Peter became 4 years old, and he was indeed an active and very annoying child. He would not stop crying or pretend problems, and he often played with his brothers and hid all day. But where? In cemeteries. Ali was often severely beaten by his father, as a result of his satanic actions, especially his hiding inside tombs repeatedly. And over again. But he did not preach. With every night, he slept crying. And as he continued to do what he did, his father handed him over to his grandfather, and the grandfather was an old teacher who only dealt with a stick. But the grandfather did not deal with 11-year-old Peter, but he promised to give him money and tell a short story on hearing. At first, it did not arouse Peter's passion, but with his mother's admonition, he went to his grandfather to listen to him. And he found stories from him that drooled him a lot and realized what he really missed, as his grandfather was passionate about horror stories of elves and ghosts. And one day, the father hit Peter after one of his riots, so he complained to his grandfather, and the grandfather said, "Do not do this again, or he will take you and put you in the land of the waterways." Suspicious experience, Peter stayed awake and hung up a lot to know the story, but his grandfather refused to tell and turned his gaze away, as if he had realized what a misfortune he had done. That kind grandmother, from whom you can extract words as easily as any old lady. Peter asked her about the land of the drivers. His grandfather's face changed. About the land of the drivers. So the lady sought refuge from the elves and changed her face and grimace. After a while, Peter worked in a factory on the outskirts of the village. He drew a look while walking that there are tombs located on this land, deserted. And to his great amazement, he had never seen anyone come and bury anyone in it. And the factory was in a cut-off area, and the places around it were deserted. And one day, he didn't eat his lunch, but by 7 o'clock in the evening, he felt hungry, so his boss asked permission to go out to get some food. But he did not find the store he was going to open, so he kept walking until he found himself in a remote and completely empty place. And he found himself in front of a small house, so he went to him, and found someone shouting at him where to go in a rough voice. The man said to him, "Are you crazy to go to the land of streams?" Peter said to him, "The land of streams? Is this the land of the streams that my grandfather used to tell about?" And he felt that there were voices coming from the deserted land. The man told him not to listen to one of them, and go to your house or where you came from. Peter caught the attention of the man's features from the ground up, and the most appropriate description to describe him was that he was standing in front of a dead person. So he ran quickly and looked behind him suddenly to find a skinny girl running towards him and screaming at him. Then she began to change into other personalities, young men, an old man and an elderly lady, and the small house disappeared. Peter continued his run until he got out of that dreadful area, so that these characters would not catch up with him and take him to the ground. Peter glimpsed the factory approaching him with its lights, but he kept running and did not feel close to him. So he stopped, catching his breath, but he looked behind him and did not find anyone who was following him. The earth stood next to his silhouette, and then this silhouette raised his right hand and kept getting taller until finally he was as tall as Peter. Now, Peter had two shadows on the floor. He looked at the factory again until he came back, but he didn't find the factory. He found himself in front of the little house again. Then he went running towards the house to ask the way back, but the house was deserted despite the lights. Peter kept knocking on the doors of the rooms inside the house, but no one answered him, but one of the doors was open. And he found himself inside the room that contained a large number of coffins, all closed and empty, and suddenly the coffins began to move and fly slowly in the air. So Peter ran out of the house to find fertile land and people moving to and fro, and beside them are scattered streams of land. Peter sat on the ground to watch what was happening, especially since he turned to the house and did not find him. Suddenly night came. They found people carrying a coffin with a live female in it, and they put the coffin inside the pond that the streamers pour into. Despite the screams of the woman inside the coffin, and everyone did not see it completely, as if it was a ghost. The scene was repeated about seven times, until Peter was able to move and found that the people who were moving back and forth had gathered around the waterways. And they took the coffins out of the waterways until their number reached 11 coffins. And they built the house that Peter had seen from the beginning and put the coffins inside it. The scene changed and people moved again. And as night fell, soon everyone came with 8 new coffins, and in them those who were burying their parents alive. Peter felt that he understood what had happened, and they were all buried. Then he found a familiar person. Indeed, it was the man he spoke to next to the factory. He came and set the house on fire, and it was completely consumed, and it turned into a desolate land full of thorns. Here Peter started glimpsing the road to appear again, so he kept running towards the factory, but the closer he got to the factory, the farther the ladder moved away, until he felt exhausted, so he sat on the ground. And here, Peter heard a voice speaking to him and scolding him for being late. Here he felt again, and here, he heard his grandfather's voice speaking to him, saying, "Why did you go to the land of the streamers? Didn't I warn you?" Peter said to him that he did not enter, and that he moved away from the ground, and he told him what Peter had already seen, that its people had practiced black magic on the inhabitants of the village, and buried them alive, but they caught the charlatans and burned them. And everyone left after that. His grandfather helped him return to the house, and Peter narrated what he saw with the promise not to go to the area again as long as he is alive. This is the end of the story. Stay tuned for upcoming stories, and thanks for watching.